Hey guys, it's me. So I know this is going to be a little bit of an unorthodox video. It's not going to be edited or polished, and I know that I'm not wearing any makeup right now, and my hair is kind of all over the place. But I just wanted to give an update video about what's been going on. And I know that I've been kind of silent on my channel here for a few weeks, and the reason for that being is the last about 3 weeks of my pregnancy has been probably the most chaotic 3 weeks of my entire life. And honestly, I say last 3 weeks of my pregnancy because officially my little baby boy has been born. So I do have lots of videos that I actually recorded, and I actually did do 2 more pregnancy vlog updates that I was trying to get out, but of course my video editing program just stopped working completely because it's just been one thing after another, I feel like, lately. So I really was trying to get those out, but my editing program, it would take like an hour just to edit like 5 minutes worth of clip, and I had like 30 minutes worth of clips for each video, so I'm still thinking that I might try and get those out if I can maybe possibly edit them, but I guess at this point it's really just kind of up in the air. So just kind of giving a shortened version of everything. At 36 weeks, I started feeling, or I should say, there was a lack of feeling of baby's movement, and I told that to my doctor, and she was kind of having trouble like finding his heart rate. So it basically from there led to kind of like a bunch of monitoring. I had a bunch of NSTs. I ended up going into the hospital. I had a bunch of ultrasounds, and just like a lot of monitoring. And kind of at the end of that, they were like, okay, well, we found his heart rate, and he's kind of getting more active again. So we are just going to go ahead and send you home, and, you know, just rest as much as possible, and hopefully your pregnancy will proceed as normally. And then that very next week, before I really had a chance to even process that, I ended up having what's called a thrombosed hemorrhoid, which is not something that I would wish on anybody, and I ended up having to get unexpected surgery. And so then I had the recovery period for that, which that was a lot of stress on my body, and it obviously put a lot of stress on the pregnancy because I'm supposed to be resting, and instead I'm getting surgery and trying to recover from this excruciating pain. And because I'm pregnant, I'm not allowed to really take any kind of pain medication, so it was just a lot of resting and a lot of ice packs and a lot of pain and trying to recover, which was hard because my boyfriend has to work, and obviously I have 3 kids at home, 3 little kids, and they require a lot of attention and a lot of activity, and so that ended up being really chaotic. And then before I had the chance to really process that, by the time I'm just getting over recovery, I go into labor. So and while I'm going into labor, my entire labor support team ends up being unavailable, if you could say that. So my labor support team consisted of my mom and my sister, and then obviously Cody and my birth photographer. And she was actually really the only one that I was available because my mom and my sister, on the day that I went into labor, went out of state. They were a few hours away. They ended up being out of state, and my entire family had caught a stomach intestinal virus. So while I'm in the middle of having all these contractions, Cody is in the bathroom literally vomiting his guts out. And the day before, I was actually in early labor. So this started, let me backtrack a little bit. This all started on July 23rd. Let's start July 23rd. My two youngest boys caught the intestinal virus first, and they started vomiting, especially Shaden. He was vomiting all day and was just not doing really, really hot. He just was not feeling very well at all. And then Lyric, my youngest, he also caught it and started vomiting. And the vomiting itself seemed to only last about 24 hours. The next day they seemed to be acting a little bit normal, but still had like really bad diarrhea. But by that point, Cody was feeling really, really sick, and he had caught the intestinal virus, and so he was sick all day, and he still had to go to work, so he had caught this virus and was still working, and then came home while I'm in active labor. I didn't say anything to him all day because he was telling me how sick he was and he was at work and I didn't want to worry him. But I just was kind of in a denial because I was like, this is literally the worst possible day for me to go into labor. So I was trying all day, even though I was having consistent contractions from about the time that I woke up to the time that I finally decided to go to the hospital, about 3 minutes apart. So at that point, Cody and Parker had started vomiting, and they were not doing really, really well. And it wasn't until I think about 1 a.m. that I stopped being so in denial about being in labor and finally called. My sister's boyfriend happened to still be around, and she called him to come pick me up so that he could take me to the hospital to have my baby. And so that was kind of just the beginning of, those are kind of just the beginnings of everything being kind of unexpected and kind of going downhill from there. So just to kind of recap on my labor a little bit, it wasn't until about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning that I even decided to go to the hospital, and by that point my contractions were coming consistently about 2 minutes apart. And so I got to the hospital and I was about a 3 to a 4. They rechecked me in an hour. I was a good 4, rechecked me in another hour, and I was a 6. So they were like, okay, this is progressing fast. This is her 4th kid. She's probably going to have it really fast. Move me over to labor delivery, just as my mom and sister had come back from out of state at that point, because I told them that I was in labor, and they drove like mad through crazy weather to get back to the hospital. And Cody had at that point gotten at least a couple hours of sleep and was feeling just okay enough to drive to the hospital, was still feeling really sick, but it was so important for both of us for him to be there. And so he arrived at the hospital, my mom and sister arrived at the hospital, my birth photographer arrived at the hospital. I had been so stressed out and so exhausted at that point because I'd been in labor for just about 36 hours at this point. And I went ahead and got the epidural. And I'm not sure if that just completely slowed everything down, but I ended up being in labor for probably about another 12 hours. So he wasn't born, my little baby boy wasn't born until July 24th at 12:53 p.m. the next day. So quite a long and rough labor. I felt pretty much all the contractions. Even though I had an epidural, it was still extremely painful and extremely tiring and extremely long and exhausting. And so that kind of brings us up to speed about the labor process.